We're now joined via Zoom by Agri SA Executive Director Christo van Rheede. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program. All right, do you want to... I can hear you, thank you. Tell us a little bit about how these bans came into play and how the products that were chosen by Namibia and Botswana came into being.
So Africa, Botswana, Namibia, as well as Lesotho and Eswatini are all part of what they call the Southern African Customs Union. And the rules for this SACU framework has been spelled out many years ago. And earlier this year, we clarified it again. And the vision statement says the following: to build a diversified, competitive, sustainable industrial base that supports transformation and the economic integration of the SACU region. In other words, we have committed ourselves as various parties to that agreement to promote an integrated and sustainable primary production and value-added manufacturing in the SACU fruit and vegetable value chain. We want to make sure that we are globally competitive and that we also promote continental and global trade. So this commitment is part of the SACU framework. And what we now find is that Botswana earlier this year decided to unilaterally impose a ban on our exports into Botswana. And Namibia has done that as well. And we find it quite strange because we thought we are partners and that we should build the region together so that we can compete with the best out there.
All right. So talk to us a little bit about what the effect of these bans will be.
So South Africa exports in the region of that's 296 million worth of products to Namibia, and in the region of 230 million rands worth of vegetables also to Botswana. Now, you must understand that Botswana and Namibia does not have the advantage that South Africa has in terms of climatic regions. We are in a position to produce fruit in the Western Cape, deciduous fruit. We're in a position to produce grapes also in the Western Cape, Northern Cape. We also produce avos and other vegetables in Limpopo, and then sugar, obviously, in KZN. So, yes, we are blessed in many ways. But in return, our borders still remain open for imports, especially meat imports from both Botswana and Namibia, and also fish imports from Namibia. So we are of the opinion that you cannot, in view of what we have decided on and that what we've agreed upon, just decide now to close your borders because you have one or the other reason for doing so. And without any proper notice given to the various partners, that for us is unacceptable.
What is Minister Rheede saying to you? Is she going to intervene?
We hope so. We have written letters now twice to both Minister Rheede as well as Minister Ibrahim Patel, where we have explained the importance of all of us adhering to the SACU rules. You know that earlier this year, the European Union also just imposed very stringent measures in terms of importing or allowing South African citrus to be imported into the European Union. And that was also unilaterally done. And we've now recently read that the citrus farmers in South Africa almost lost 200 million rands worth of citrus due to the fact that we could not land that citrus in the European Union. Now, luckily for us, the Minister of Agriculture has intervened, and we are now proceeding with those exports. But remember now, between South Africa and the SADC region, and the European Union. We also have a framework in place to allow for free trade. We've got a similar agreement between the African continent as well as the United States in terms of AGOA. And then on the African continent, we've got the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And it's no use. We have all of these agreements to allow for free trade. And then countries just decide to impose bans or not to adhere to the letter and spirit of those agreements. And it's always the poorest of the poor that suffers. It's so important at this stage of global economic downturn that our borders remain open for trade and that we ensure that goods are landed timelessly in specific countries so that people can benefit from good quality products and cheap prices. You've seen what was the impact, for example, when the Ukrainians couldn't get their grains out of Ukraine to countries such as Egypt and many other countries. People really suffered as a result of that.
Is there a danger that this could trigger retaliatory measures by South Africa because Namibia and Botswana can't afford not to have their products entering our country?
Indeed, and this is the danger of this kind of unilateral decisions, that at the end of the day you find yourself in a situation where South Africa decides, right, we are not going to allow any meats of Botswana or Namibia into South Africa, and then it becomes a tit for tat. That's why we worked on a SACU agreement, and that SACU agreement is now in place for 2 decades. As I said earlier, the idea is that we build the regional capacity. We deal with the cross-border issues, and create a sophisticated system. We make sure that farmers are being developed in Namibia as well as Botswana, in Lesotho, Swaziland, and together with South Africa, we can become a very powerful regional bloc so that we can also export to the rest of the world. Currently, trade is absolutely skewed. We export to the rest of the world, but the Americans, the Chinese, the Brazilians, they trade or their exports to South Africa runs into the billions. So it's quite skewed. So it's important that we have a situation where we stick to the, as I said, the letter and spirit of this agreement. You remember the trade war between the US as well as China, how that has led to disruptions of goods all over the world. And the pandemic, as well as the lockdowns, regulations, the war now in Ukraine, all of this impact on global trade, and we should avoid any unnecessary protective measures. There are tariffs that people can put in place, and I think that's the best route to follow. But to just ban the imports or the exports of goods to another country, that is not on.
Mr. Van Rheede, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Let's hope that sanity does prevail soon and that these activities come to an end. Thanks so much indeed for highlighting this issue, and let's hope that it gets resolved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's Director Christo Van Rheede from Agri SA saying that Botswana and Namibia going against the spirit and the letter of the law that binds SACU countries together, banning South African products whilst their products are allowed to come into South Africa.